Hello, puppies and kittens. I'm sorry that on this annual celebration of Atheist Day, I could not be there in Austin to meet and sup with y'all in person, but I know you're all surviving the plague of our time. Damn it, dog. The dog is trying to remove the soul or squeaky thing out of its toy. I apologize. This thing is determined to ruin every type podcast I do. Anyway, as I said, I hope you're all surviving the plague of our time. And I know these conditions are unprecedented. What is with that dog? You want your own show? Go! For those of you wondering, it's a Great Pyrenees. Ah! Shut up! Damn. I know these conditions are unprecedented if you ignore the Spanish flu of a century ago, but like so many other things, the first time won't be the only time. We will face other similar trials, probably repeat. Honey, lock that dog up. What was I saying? Like so many things, the first time won't be the only time. We will face other similar trials, probably repeatedly over the course of the next century or so, because climate change is a thing. It is anthropogenic, and there are consequences in our inability to see how things add up. But that's why we invented a religion that allows us to avoid all responsibility, where we don't have to actually help anyone. We can just literally wish upon a star that they'll accidentally get the help that they need, and that we don't have to actually donate money or effort to that end. Likewise, we don't have to be accountable for anything either. It doesn't matter if you serial molested 4 out of your 10 siblings, because if the judge is another wanna-believer like you, then you might be able to avoid jail time if you just say that your magic imaginary friend has forgiven you. And why wouldn't he? He already knows exactly why you did all the stupid things that you do. He fully understands and accepts all your bullshit excuses because he is you. And that's why your own personal Jesus never knows more than you do. And he also believes the same falsehoods you do. If you thought that the First World War was fought in 1776, then your God thinks so too, because your God is just as stupid as you. That's why he hates everything that you hate. Man created God in his own image, and we put his word into his mouth in the scriptures that we scribed, telling us to be fruitful and multiply, to dominate and subdue the earth. Our sacred fables never said anything about implementing a different policy once we doubled the global population, as we did a century ago. And then that number doubled again. And then that number doubled again, just over the course of a single lifetime, such that the combination of our food and energy consumption is killing off the majority of plant and animal species on land or in the sea. If we allow willfully ignorant reality deniers to remain in charge, then the Anthropocene extinction event will likely rival even the great dying that divides the Permian and Triassic. Because our population growth is exponential, unsustainable, meaning that the more times like these are on the way, and it's likely to get much worse as different catalysts and calamities each demand their own unprecedented responses, which we have not yet devised. Don't ever get a Great Pyrenees. Not if you have a recording job. So, our beloved president fired our pandemic response team, saying that no one could have predicted that there would actually be a pandemic, except for whoever created a pandemic response team. I think they might have guessed that something like this would happen. But remember that Trump said that his pandemic, this pandemic, was a Chinese hoax. He said global warming was a Chinese hoax too. And the reality of that mistake will hit us even harder than this one already is. Interestingly, the reason that antibiotics work on bacteria but not on viruses is because bacteria is alive. It's biotic, but viruses don't quite qualify as life because they can't maintain the internal chemical balance known as homeostasis. Nor are they quite dead, because even though they're not quite alive, they can still be killed. So in a sense, this is a zombie apocalypse, one in which the undead can only be defeated by hoarding toilet paper. I'm luckier than most because I work from home. I no longer have to live off daily tips or cash payments like I used to. I've also been taking college classes online before every other student in the country was forced to. I'm taking classes from Arizona State University's School of Human Evolution and Social Change. Go Sun Devils. I went with ASU partly because I was named after a sun god and partly because I thought it was appropriate that a seemingly satanic atheist activist should be a sun devil. This year, I took courses in archaeology, paleontology, primatology, cultural and physical anthropology, and now I'm taking courses distinguishing legitimate science from pseudo-archaeology. They're actually talking about all those fake fossils of giants that you might have seen pictures of but can't touch the real thing because there is no real thing. And this course also talks about at least one of Ron Wyatt's hoaxes. And not the one where he pretended to find the exact site of Jesus's crucifixion and his actual blood and the Ark of the Covenant all in the same place at the same time, but the one where he said that a pile of dirt on Mount Ararat was really Noah's Ark. If you've seen the images of it, that vaguely boat-shaped mound of mud at the Drupanar site is shaped like a canoe because snow melts and flows down either side. If you look for it, you can even find photos of another canoe-shaped ark close to the bigger one. Wyatt never mentions that one because his favorite fairy tale doesn't allow for it. So I'm sure to have fun with that class. And all of these classes have to refer to Charles Darwin for various reasons. And consequently, all of them also have to explain that a scientific theory is not just a drunken idea or a blind guess of baseless speculation like every revelation of religious truth always turns out to be. Instead, each of my college courses teaches that a scientific theory is an explanation of a body of facts, an explanation that has been rigorously tested and passed every test. In other words, a scientific theory is like a hypothesis that has been effectively proven by an overwhelming preponderance of evidence beyond reasonable doubt. And because they have to explain all that, they've also had to stress that accepting and understanding science doesn't mean that you can't still believe in a God if you really want to. It's just that biblical mythology cannot be a literal history of things that really happened as described, because none of those atrocious legends are evidently true, and most of them contradict everything we actually do know and can prove to be real. Some of these classes have even had to explain that the only way we can know anything at all is if we assume that the universe is real, rather than pretend that we're all figments of God's imagination, wherein nothing is real, including us, and therefore nothing means anything, and no one can ever really know anything either, not even the people who already believe in that particular God, as if such a thing was possible. It's not. But a lot of people like the idea that no one can really know anything because that means that they get to make believe in their favorite phantasm. But the rest of us would rather understand reality. So we're comfortable assuming that there is a reality or that reality is real, because even if everything is just an illusion, like in the Matrix, we still have to obey the laws of this particular video game, whether we're player characters or NPCs. It's still our reality. So there's effectively no difference between real and virtual in that hypothetical absurdity. And just remember that anything that exists outside our reality does not exist in reality. And if it exists beyond time, then at no time does it exist. I have to be pragmatic and assume that even if I assume that reality is real, as it evidently and logically is, especially given both Occam's and Hitchens' razors, that even if everything we perceive is only a virtual illusion, the fact remains that a line of footprints in the sand still means that someone walked there, and fossil bones are still evidence of an extinct animal, whether this reality is the real one or not. So there is neither purpose nor value in idealism. Honestly, there's no version of God that makes any sense or has any value, or that isn't somehow a contradiction of itself. Look at our current situation. We've got all these evangelical faith-healing churches voluntarily closing their doors because of a virus they know they can't cure. That's a clear admission that they know they're full of shit, that all this holiness is just make-believe by pretenders. Then, after enough people pointed out that little bit of hypocrisy, we have a few other churches offering to lay hands on hundreds of infected elderly, knowing that that's how this disease spread far and wide in the first place. It spread all over South Korea from a single church service. And here in the States, 45 people were infected in one service where they sprayed holy water into everyone's mouth using the same squirt gun. The Lord works in delirious ways. Ignorance and hypocrisy abound in religion, such that now we have even more faith healers pretending to heal people remotely through their TV screens, but still demanding that those people risk infection by physically going down to the church to slide their tithing under the door, because these self-appointed spokesmen for God want everyone to think that they really care about humanity. Not if you don't send that check to Paula the Great White Hypocrite, because she's the president's advisor to things no one ever actually knows anything about, and certainly not her ignorant, self-serving ass. Notice also that no one ever prophesied any of the unprecedented events that have ever happened in our lives. Hopefully, most of us will make it through these unexpected challenges. I hope to get through this. I'm being careful. I'm also not going to complain too much, because if karma exists, maybe God is Rod Serling, and he wrote the Twilight Zone episodes that we're all living through. And most of all, understand that I'm not promoting hatred. I never have. No one cares what you hate, and neither should you. It's only the things that we love that will endear you in someone else's memory, and that's the nearest to immortality that we can hope for. I've always thought that a positive attitude helps maintain a healthy perspective, and that makes life more livable. So if you can't appreciate something positively, at least allow yourself to be impressed. I am.